In terms of assessments with the two different groups, the School of Art and Design e-portfolios were assessed. They were 50% of the overall assessment for the module. For the foundation degree, it was for formative assessment, and they could use the e-portfolio at the end for their summative presentation if they wanted to, but it wasn't a compulsory aspect. It turned out that sort of 10 out of the 20 used e-portfolio to submit their assessment through voluntarily because they'd benefited so much from the process. They wanted to show the end result in the same way, so I was pleased with that. Yeah. We did have difficulty and many conversations around assessment for the art and design portfolios because originally we were just marking them on the criteria in the same way as the paper components would have been. Because if you imagine this was a brand new module, a brand new cohort, so it was really like a pilot year of how this was going to work and whether it was going to or not. So we got to sort of midway through the module to see how we would go about assessing it. In the validation documents, it was going to be assessed against the criteria if they'd done the same activities on paper. What we found was the level of engagement with multimedia and different ways of presenting things gave us some issues towards the end that we wanted to find a way of including these in the marking rubric so that all the extra effort that students had gone to wouldn't be ignored. So we came up with a marking rubric that had a section for creativity and alternative methods for delivery. So things like, could you exchange an essay for a digital story, could you exchange a presentation for a podcast, that sort of thing. It's by no means perfect, and it was still under review last year to try and make this more equitable if you wanted to use more multimedia methods for your evidence. But for the year that I was there, it was still very much we marked against the paper criteria, even with the e-portfolio. The students' opinions and perceptions of how it was assessed were varied. There was in the first year, first semester, they were very much, what have I got to do? What exactly do you want? How many words do you want? And so for some of them, it was a little bit alarming that they could do a little bit what they wanted to do and put their own framework on it. But how we had put it together was that there was writing frameworks for each of the things that they had to do. So there was scaffolded activities if they didn't want to use other methods of, so if they didn't want to use a photo blog to show their experiences, they didn't have to. They were quite happy with the assessment, the way it worked. What a lot of them told me was the ability to hyperlink out to other digital repositories that they had to show their artwork was really useful, so they didn't have to recreate things in this space. So they enjoyed the fact that they could make a piece of their reflective writing have more substance to it by pointing out to a different site or by pointing to a different part of their e-portfolio. So they were with us on the journey, the majority of them. So my personal opinions about assessment for e-portfolios is there's still a long way to go until we sort of get it right. I think that many people don't go down the road of assessing e-portfolios because they don't want to take the risk in case it doesn't work out and somebody complains. But I think my biggest issue is the equity of assessment against things that aren't traditional assessment methods. So within an e-portfolio, you want to put a digital story in, or you want to put podcast in, or you want to take advantage of the flexibility of being able to express yourself through multimedia, yet assessment criteria don't readily enable you to do this. So I think we have a bigger issue in assessing creativity generally, and I think we have to work quite closely with the creative arts subjects to take on board how they assess creativity and just, loosen the framework of assessment methods that we use. But yeah, parity is a real big thing for e-portfolio assessment, I think.